Ever get the feeling that keeping up with the future is like a full-time job in itself?
Yeah.
Like you need a decoder ring just to understand what the big thinkers are really saying.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, take AI, for example. It feels like every day brings a new headline, a new prediction, a new anxiety spiral.
Right, and that's exactly why we're here, to actually, dive deep into the source material, cut through the noise, figure out what's really going on. And lately, well, Bill Gates has been talking a lot about AI.
He has. Public appearances, interviews, even that fascinating conversation he had with Arthur Brooks. There's definitely a lot to unpack.
And what really struck me is that there are like two totally different ways to interpret what he's saying. On one hand, it's a straight up warning. AI is going to revolutionize the job market, and maybe not in a good way for a lot of folks.
Right. But on the other hand, there's this almost utopian vision of AI freeing us from the grind. Like finally, we can all focus on the things that make us human, creative, and fulfilled.
It's a huge question. Like, are we on the brink of a jobless future? Or is this the dawn of a new era of, human potential?
Yeah, and that's what we're going to try to sort out today. What does Bill Gates actually believe about the future of work in the age of AI? And what does it mean for all of us?
All right, so let's tackle the elephant in the room first. This whole idea that AI is coming for our jobs. Gates has even said himself, this could be bigger than the PC revolution, bigger than the internet.
Yeah, he did. In that conversation with Arthur Brooks, remember, he talked about free intelligence. Essentially, what happens when a resource that used to require massive human effort is suddenly abundant?
Right, and I guess, in a way, that's already happening. Think about, all the stuff we used to do manually that's now automated. Filing, scheduling, even some basic customer service.
Exactly. But what Gates is suggesting is that AI is about to go way beyond that. We're talking about automating tasks that we always considered uniquely human, like thinking, problem solving, even creativity.
And there are some pretty specific examples of where this could play out, like medicine and education.
Yeah. He talked about AI tutors that can provide personalized learning 24/7. Imagine, every kid gets the equivalent of private tutor. And then, in healthcare, AI medical assistants could do initial diagnoses, especially in places that lack doctors.
Sounds amazing in theory. But then you read articles, like in Lost 40, about how Gates is predicting massive job losses. And suddenly it's not so utopian anymore.
Right, and the Indian Express also picked up on that. I mean, if AI can do all this stuff better and cheaper than humans, what happens to all the people who currently do those jobs? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, even journalists.
So that's a scary part. But then Gates also talks about this other side of the coin, this idea that AI could actually free us up to work less. Like a 2 or 3 day work week. I read something about that in Fortune magazine.
He did say that. And it's tempting to dismiss it as techno-optimism gone wild. But think about it. If AI can handle all the drudgery, all the repetitive tasks, wouldn't that free us up to focus on the things we actually want to do?
Right, like spending time with family, pursuing creative hobbies, maybe even starting that business you've always dreamed of.
Exactly. And this gets to a really important point. AI doesn't just have to replace us, it could also augment us. It could be like the ultimate personal assistant, handling all the stuff we don't want to do so we can focus on the stuff we're actually good at.
So it's not necessarily all doom and gloom then?
Not necessarily, although Gates does seem to think that some jobs are more AI-proof than others. He talked about that in the Indian Express interview too.
Right, he mentioned biologists, energy experts, and coders, because those fields require deep reasoning, creativity, the ability to handle unpredictable problems.
Exactly. The kind of stuff AI is still pretty bad at least for now.
Although, funny thing is, in that same article, they quoted other tech experts saying that coding might be one of the first jobs to be disrupted by AI.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. It kind of shows how much uncertainty there is, even among the people who are building this stuff.
Right. So I guess the question is, even if some jobs are AI-proof today, will they still be tomorrow?
Good question. And that brings up a whole other set of concerns. Even if this AI-powered future is amazing for some people, what about everyone else?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. This whole vision of a 4-day work week, more leisure time, it sounds great if you're already well off. What about people who are struggling to make ends meet?
Exactly. And a lot of critics, you can find their thoughts in places like Lost 40. They're worried that AI could actually worsen inequality. The rich get richer while everyone else is left behind.
And then you have to start thinking about things like universal basic income. If millions of people are out of work, how do they survive?
Right. And then there's the whole ethical side of things. Like, how do we ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly? That it doesn't become, a tool for discrimination or oppression?
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And I feel like Gates is aware of all this. Like, he's not just some naive techno-utopian. He sees both the potential and the risks.
Oh, definitely. And I think that came across really clearly in his recent interview with CNN.
Yeah, that one was fascinating. He talked about the history of AI going all the way back to Alan Turing and how, for a long time, progress was slow and incremental.
Right. But then things started to accelerate, especially in the last few years. Like with ChatGPT-4, suddenly AI can read and write at a human level. It can even pass medical exams.
Yeah. And he said that this is the most profound advance in technology ever. Like, that's a pretty bold statement.
It is, but I think he genuinely believes it, and it shows how seriously he's taking this whole AI revolution.
But he also acknowledged that, just because AI is amazing doesn't mean everyone will benefit equally.
Right. He specifically talked about the potential for AI to improve healthcare in developing countries. But he also worried that without conscious effort, it could actually widen the gap between rich and poor.
Yeah, that's a real concern. And I was glad to hear him talk about what the Gates Foundation is doing to address that, like supporting AI development in languages other than English so it can be used in more places.
Right. And making cloud computing more accessible in developing countries.
He gave some really cool examples, like using AI to power portable ultrasound devices that can be used in remote villages, and using AI to accelerate drug discovery, especially for diseases that affect poor people.
Like malaria, he talked about how traditional drug development often ignores those diseases because there's not enough profit in it. But AI could change that.
It's amazing to think about the potential there. But he also mentioned the challenges, like, conflict, climate change, all the things that make it hard to implement these solutions in the places that need the most.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole question of energy consumption that came up in the CNN interview too.
Yeah, it's something a lot of people are worried about. Like, AI is cool and all, but what if it uses up all the energy?
Right. Well, Gates said that for now, AI's energy footprint is relatively small compared to things like transportation and heavy industry, but it's definitely growing.
And he pointed out that a lot of the big data center companies are actually pushing for sustainable energy solutions, like nuclear, wind, solar.
Which is encouraging, although he also said that in the short term, we're probably going to need all kinds of energy sources, including natural gas.
So it sounds like with AI, as with most things, it's not a simple black and white picture. There are amazing possibilities, but also some real risks.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Gates's perspective so valuable. He's not just blindly optimistic or pessimistic. He's trying to grapple with the complexities.
And that's what we all need to be doing, right? Like, this isn't just some abstract debate. This is about the future of work, the future of society.
Right. And for you, the listener who's taking the time to really understand this stuff, that puts you ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some things to consider as you navigate this rapidly changing world.
Absolutely. And here's a final thought to leave you with. As you think about all the potential futures we've discussed, one question to ask yourself is, what skills and knowledge will be most valuable in an AI-driven world? And what can you do now to prepare for that future?
Yeah, because whether AI ends up being our liberator or our replacement, one thing's for sure, it's going to change everything.
Absolutely. And the more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to navigate those changes.
Exactly. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking those big questions.
What are your thoughts on today's topic? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed.